Tonight on the show, we're talking The Walking Dead's updated synopsis for its final season, Willem Dafoe's reluctance to talk Spider-Man No Way Home, a crazy casting rumor for HBO Max's The Last of Us series, and a potential Marvel vs. DC film with James Gunn. We're so glad that you're here, and welcome to Let's Talk Movie News. Guys, welcome back to Let's Talk Movies. I'm Brad.
I'm Miguel, guys.
And this is Let's Talk Movie News. This is actually the show that we were supposed to do yesterday. So we were supposed to do the show on Friday.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, this is a whole week late because the Halloween Kills trailer dropped early because of all the leaks and all the people leaking that crap, and it was a crappy ordeal. But we have the Halloween Kills trailer, which leads me and reminds me, if you haven't checked out episode 27 of our main show, we're breaking down the Halloween Kills trailer piece by piece, and we are talking about that. It was a great trailer, and I know we broke the internet for a solid night, so that was a good time.
It really did.
I hated the circumstances that it dropped, but at least it dropped, and so be it.
It was a great time.
It was a great time.
It's good to know that like the fan base is as crazy about it to the point where like they're releasing shit, and the studio just like, all right, fuck it, guys, you get it, you win.
Well, it would have been, and I've seen a few people say this, it would have been nice to have like the build up, because they would have like built it up like until that Thursday, like they would have had like little snippets of stuff until then, but it's okay. I mean, so be it. It's a shame, but hopefully Universal learned a lesson for Halloween Ends, because to my knowledge, they didn't take anything down. Like nothing was, they didn't really, like I said on our episode, they didn't really do any damage control of like trying to shelter the leaks a little bit and like contain it. It was just,
yeah.
I mean, I scrolled past the trailer twice in like a 2-hour period. So, I mean, it was out there, but
like leaked or just like
the leak, like what somebody took on their phone, or like a crappy like 280p version of the trailer. I mean, it's just like that, I don't, like I said, the images are one thing, but when you have a crappy version of the whole trailer, that's when it's like, okay.
Yeah,
we're getting a little crappy now.
I feel like if I did watch that trailer on like a phone, like the amount of like impact it would have had probably wouldn't have been the same, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't have, and I don't blame them for releasing it early, because at least they gained control. But like I said, I hope that for Halloween Ends next year, presuming it's still, it'll probably come next year. I'd say that is probably still.
Yeah, we're not nearing any other pandemic. I'm not gonna. I hope not.
Yeah, I think don't jinx it.
Yeah.
I think the plan is still to film Halloween Ends this fall when Halloween Kills is releasing, and then we'll get the end next year. Speaking of new movies filming next year, I just saw like a few minutes ago before we started recording that Fast 10 is supposed to start filming in January. I don't know about you. I heard Fast 9 is terrible.
Everybody fucking says they're terrible, but I mean the cult classics. I mean the cult following is there.
It does have a big cult following, and I've never we've talked about this before. I'm not a big I've never been a big Fast and Furious guy. I like them, like it's fun to see it one time, but I've never had a desire to rewatch it. And even Hobbs and Shaw. I really enjoyed Hobbs and Shaw, but like I don't really care to ever see it again.
That's fair. I know a lot of people that are the same way. Not a car guy.
So tonight I'm drinking Voodoo Ranger IPA. It's a tall can and it's 9% alcohol, so it's about to knock me down. But it's delicious. Really good.
That's why you don't do IPAs. You just get yourself a good old Belgian
I love
beer.
IPAs. You're going with the Heineken?
Yeah, no, it's Holland. It's a Holland beer. My bad, guys. Shout out to Heineken.
Oh, I see. Dope.
Yeah. So what news we got today?
Let's talk some news. So you want to start The Last of Us? You want to start The Walking Dead? Where do you want to begin? We have a lot of Marvel news tonight. A lot of Marvel stuff to talk about. And it's some fun Marvel stuff too. So
Mm. Let's talk about The Walking Dead because that's always been like a childhood favorite of ours.
it is. It's one of the things we talk about the most.
It-
Um, so The Walking Dead's final season, it's got a new updated synopsis. Um, obviously the final season, it's already been filming. Part one comes out on August 22nd, I believe, is when the last season begins airing. And
Mhm.
the last season is 24 episodes, so it'll be split up into 8 episode, like 3 different parts. Um, so it's kind of funny to say that like we're starting the last season because the last season really won't be done until over a year from now. I mean,
Yeah, because The
we still
Walking
have a
Dead is
lot more
just
Walking
so.
Dead left.
Yeah, because The Walking Dead literally does like that half season and then disappears for like another 6 months and then pops up again.
Well, now we're getting that twice.
Yeah, now we're doing it twice. And just Jesus
So
Christ, guys! Like, I, I,
yeah.
I'm sad to see that show go, but yeah, let's just pull the Band-Aid off at this point. I just want to see it.
You
Honestly,
sound like the people on Facebook. One of my favorite things ever to do is after an episode of The Walking Dead, get on Facebook. My mom does this too.
no, no,
Shout
no,
out,
no, no,
shout
no,
out,
no.
shout out to my mom because
I'm
people
not
on
like.
Facebook, they're like, The Walking Dead is the worst thing I've ever seen, but I loved it when Glenn died. Like,
That's not me. Again,
I
that's
know,
not
I
me.
know.
Straight up, I'm just saying, like we've been built up to this whole story. I've been following it for all this time, and the one thing I hated the most was the mid-season finales. Those always pissed me off because it's just like you're prolonging a story. Like, my God, guys, just give me the story. I want to see it. Like, I'm all for seeing it. I'm excited to see it. But if I gotta wait another whole year just for it
Yeah.
to end,
I've always thought The Walking Dead could do. I think they would be better off to do maybe 12 episodes instead of 16. I've always thought that. I mean, and I
I mean,
adore the show,
I
but
can't.
there are episodes of that show that you could cut out for more or less. Not all of them. There's not a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of them, but there are a few episodes in that series where it's kind of like we didn't need, like this is not really contributing anything new. Especially around the after the prison before Terminus thing when
Before, yeah,
we were just all separated and wandering out in the woods and it was like are they going to find each other? Where are they going? What's going on? But
the both of us can agree that little snippet of like before Terminus was honestly one of the most slow pace,
it really was.
like most slow pace section of this entire series. So like, yeah, I feel like we could definitely like remove that
Yeah.
and still have a decent show or story, I guess.
You could. But
Yeah.
we're talking the end of the story, obviously, and it's got the new synopsis. So I wanted to read the new synopsis. So here is the new synopsis for the final season of The Walking Dead. Previously on The Walking Dead, our survivors confronted past demons and combated new threats, with friendships and relationships suffering from the mounting collateral damage that is the apocalypse. Alexandria is severely compromised, left a former shell of the home that it once was from the carnage and devastation left behind the Whisperers. So already we know Alexandria
Like
is screwed. I mean,
yeah,
it's
they're
and
leaving Alexandria.
we talked about that in the movie, the last movie news show we did. I'm all screwed up because of the days. We talked about that behind the scenes picture of them walking in Alexandria. It looks like a ghost town.
It got
It
wrecked.
looks terrible.
It looks like it got wrecked even more. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because like I know whenever Maggie came back, I know that they were just like now rebuilding it to a certain degree. Um, I feel like throughout this and throughout the next couple of throughout the last season, like we're gonna see Alexander get fucking rocked.
yeah,
Obviously by the community, the Commonwealth. Sorry,
yeah.
the Commonwealth, and I mean they're gonna be like, all right, well we got to fuck them up because they literally just destroyed our home.
Right.
So
So the synopsis goes on to say, now all who live in Alexandria struggle to refortify it and feed its increasing number of residents, which include the survivors from the fall of the kingdom and the burning of Hilltop, along with Maggie and her new group, the Wardens. Alexandria has more people than it can manage to feed and protect. Their situation is dire, excuse me, as tensions heat up over past events and self-preservation rises to the surface within the ravaged walls. They must secure more food while they attempt to restore Alexandria before it collapses like countless other communities they have come across throughout the years, but where and how? More haggard and hungrier than ever before, they must dig deeper to find the effort and strength to safeguard the lives of their children, even if it means losing their own. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to those at Alexandria, Eugene, Ezekiel, Yumiko, and Princess are still being held captive by mysterious soldiers who are members of a larger and unforthcoming group.
I love how the synopsis pretty much like gives like the idea of like they don't know who they are, but let's be honest, like most of the Walking Dead fans are already
Oh yeah,
well read up with who the fuck this mysterious group is.
yeah,
Because as I said, it's fucking Commonwealth.
right.
Well,
Well,
it's funny. I kind of wait. Where is the Commonwealth? Like in the comics?
like
I'm gonna die if it's
at
in
what
Kentucky.
point or like location? Where is it?
Location. Because if it's in Kentucky, I'm gonna lose my shit.
No, I don't think it's in Kentucky.
That would have been great. I'm not gonna lie. That would have
I
been
have
great.
to look it up. Let me see.
Because it's always been in like this, like below the.
It's in
Bible Belt.
Ohio.
Jesus.
It's in eastern Ohio, so not far from Kentucky.
Jesus. What they've been in Atlanta though. They gotta go far.
Well, Alexandria is in Virginia though. They're not in Atlanta anymore. Yeah.
Holy shit, they really did go far.
Yeah.
No, because I keep thinking like it's like within like under the Bible Belt where like Georgia, Alabama, all that stuff, South Carolina. I figured it was like around there, but damn, they went far.
Yeah. They've come
Hell,
a long
I hate
way.
driving up to your house because it's long.
It's not long.
Wow, do you imagine walking that? Jesus Christ.
So be it. So there's kind of a lot to unpack here. So, now all who live in Alexandria struggle to fortify it and feed its increasing number of residents. Food is a problem. Food and water has been a problem for a little while. They kind of talked about that a little bit even during the Whisperer War.
Well, they've been talking. It was like a main focus in like those extra 6 episodes that they made, because like that was the problem. It was like there is no food. Like we've searched everywhere and there's no food.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, I mean, you just said that. You can only, if Alexandria is in one spot, you can only go out so far to find food before you've searched everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you just see that?
No, I didn't. What did you do?
I just opened this bitch with my ring. Oh my goodness. I just learned something new. Boy.
There you have it, folks.
That's a new skill, guys. Then you know you can do it with your ring. Just letting you know.
Pretty dope.
Shout out. But okay, I'm sorry. That just surprised the hell out of me.
You're good. I can tell. So I mean, and you have to think it's not just the people from Alexandria when Rick was around. You have the Hilltop people, you have the Kingdom's people, you have the rest of the Saviors that are still alive and switch sides to Rick. You have Maggie's group. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different people from different communities like together now. And I mean, it's been what, 6 years since Rick. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's been a little bit. It tell me what you think. To me, especially the end of this synopsis makes it seem like trying to restore Alexandria is going to be a big part of this last season.
Yeah.
And I don't know
like
if it's going to happen.
It's going to be like by the mid-season finale whenever they actually leave, or it's going to be like a couple episodes before then when they actually leave and they end up finding Commonwealth. I think either it's going to be like the mid-season finale is going to consist of them either leaving Alexandria or they've already left it and they find the Commonwealth.
Probably.
Which again,
and
if
like
I was gonna say if the next season, the like final season, is just gonna be about, it's just gonna consist of Commonwealth, I'm gonna be tore apart because it's like I want to see more of Commonwealth. I don't want it to end of them just discovering it, or I don't want them rushing the story of Commonwealth.
Well, and I don't know if they're gonna rush it. I honestly wonder if the whole, because you have to think, there obviously there's what's going on in the main show, but there's a lot of other stuff going on with the CRM and World Beyond and who took Rick, what's the whole AB thing. I mean, like, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that I think we don't have enough knowledge to put the puzzle together yet. I
Hmm.
think now that we're adding Alexandria and Commonwealth into the mix, I think Commonwealth is a part of this whole Civil Republic military thing, because the whole deal with Commonwealth is they have like a president and legislators, and like they're trying to like live like the United States was before the apocalypse.
Hmm.
And Rick's whole deal is like, you can't, like, that's not, like, you can't do that anymore. Like, it's not, things have changed. We don't, it's not the same set of rules that we had before then. So
Well,
I don't know.
I was gonna say like in like I got that. I kind of understood that situation whenever they initially got to Alexandria. But as you've seen like in the extra 6 episodes, like you notice like how monotonous it's gotten with like these walkers. Like they're deteriorating. They're like killing them has just become more like a chore than it is like a basic basis
Hmm.
of survival.
Good way of
So
putting it.
like
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like now with like Commonwealth and the TRM, like that's gonna be like they're slowly starting to build back up because it's like the zombies are no longer like becoming more of a it's no longer becoming like a big ordeal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, and it's I think they're a little bit more sporadic too. Now, if you have a horde, it's like your favorite
It's a
thing is
different
a
that's a
zombie horde. If you have a horde, that's a problem. Like
that's yeah, that's a
that's a big
different
deal.
story.
But
Hmm.
10 of them sporadically around is not a big deal anymore because they're
Hmm.
so used to it. Um, and I don't know. I think that's part of what sets that's part of why the beginning of this series and the end of this series, like the first half and the second half, feel so different. I think is
Hmm.
because the second half they're not really afraid of them anymore. The first half of the series, they were still kind of afraid of the zombies. Like the
Yeah.
zombies were still, um, they still, I guess, resembled people.
Hmm.
Like there was a story behind them still.
Yeah,
You could
everyone's
you could
still
look at a walker and be like, "Holy crap, she was pregnant." Or you can look at a walker and be like, "Wow, what was his, where did they come from? How did they become a zombie? How did they get bit?" The
hmm.
zombies now, they're so rotted and they're so decayed that it's kind of like they're just it's like a monster. It doesn't really resemble a person anymore, you
There's
know?
no yeah, like there's no more humanity within them
And they're not
because
afraid of them because of
mhm,
that.
yeah, that's interesting to think about it. The fact that
It
like
is.
the fear of it was the history of the individual. Like you still feel somewhat conflicted with killing a zombie because you can still tell the story
Yeah,
of them before they became a walker.
right.
But now again, like they're just so deteriorated and they're just like breaking down. So like you really can't depict what the story was. So it's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's basically a monster. And that's kind of like it's low key kind of sad to think about it.
It is sad,
To
yeah.
think to like if you were to put yourself in that situation like this far into the apocalypse where they're almost the same, they're almost the equivalent of say like a deer or something like that. Like you don't know what his story is. It's just
Except
another
you can't
thing.
eat them.
Yeah, except you can't eat them. Don't eat them, guys. Don't eat them. But it's like a wild animal just running
Right.
around. Like you really don't know whether or therefore care of
Yeah.
their history because they're just another beast that either needs to be killed off or steered away.
Right. And that's not a that I don't we don't say that as a dig at the show or at the writing or at Greg Nicotero.
No, I
It
think I
makes
know.
perfect sense. It
I
makes
think it's
perfect
beautiful.
sense that they're decaying. And I mean it's
Mhm.
been what? I mean it's been I want to say it's been going on like 12 years now.
Yeah, which I don't
10
know
to
how
12
long.
years it since it started, at least since Rick woke up, because Rick woke
Hmm.
up I think like 5 or 6 months after like society collapsed. Um, so it's been a while now. Like, and after a while, people are going to be the only thing they have to worry about because there's not really going to be any walkers left. Obviously,
Hmm.
when people die, there'll still be fresh walkers, but as far as the ones that have been dead for a long time, there's not really going to be too many of them left.
No,
So,
really, yeah.
it's kind of an interesting conversation to have. My light is all twisted. I don't know why.
Which
Um,
again, look, like Greg Nicotero and his writing with this whole storyline of The Walking Dead, it's probably one of the most well thought out and I want to say beautiful of a zombie story. because you're actually like you're legitimately giving it time to evolve, and you can like see like I would say The Walking Dead is probably the most realistic point of view of what a zombie apocalypse could look like. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I would agree with that. Yeah,
So like whenever like now that we've like because we basically like if you think about it, we've experienced a zombie apocalypse throughout like what's it called? What's it called whenever you're like you're vicariously living a zombie apocalypse with this show. So you actually can tell like how life probably would have been like.
right,
And the fact that Greg Nicotero could figure that out and create this story basically showcasing the evolution of a zombie,
for sure.
not really more like the decay of a zombie. It's a pretty well thought out story. It's like, yeah, I could totally see that. Like
Yeah,
everyone that's watched this show can definitely tell that like in the event of a zombie apocalypse, if we were to survive that many years, that's pretty much what it's going to come down to is the zombies are no longer become as fearful as they are. It's now going to be the collapsed society.
right.
Like how it's going to be now people that you're going to have to worry about,
Yeah.
which by the way, Fear the Walking Dead kind of like hinted at that in the beginning a little bit. It was just like how people are going to react to it. It wasn't just about survival. It was just how did society try to be more how did society try to hold it together in the event of the apocalypse? You know what I mean?
You mean initially?
Yeah, initially.
Yeah, and
Like you could tell.
I'm glad you bring that up too, because those first what is it 6 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead,
Mm-hmm.
I love those
Mm-hmm.
first 6 episodes.
Yeah.
And I'm not I'll admit it, I'm not completely caught up on Fear the Walking Dead. I'm only through like season 4. I need to catch up one of these days. It's on my to watch list. But I love that first season because and I've said this before, and this kind of even ties into what you were just talking about with you're kind of telling a story of the zombies as well as your main characters. Um, One of the things that I love the most about the whole zombie apocalypse genre of film and TV is that it's kind of telling multiple stories within a story because I mean, think if you saw somebody getting mugged in the middle of the street, that would be like, oh my god, I gotta help them. Like
Mm-hmm.
that'd be kind of a traumatic thing. But the zombie apocalypse, it's so interesting because obviously you're following one central character because that's how stories work.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't if you had a movie that was just random people dying and running and there'd be nothing to follow. The storyline wouldn't make sense at all. There'd be no plot. But you're following one character and you're kind of like you said living vicariously through them, having to navigate, you're running through a neighborhood trying to escape and there are people dying and getting eaten and bitten and running and killing each other all around you and you just kind of have to ignore that and do what's right for you. So I've always found it so interesting about that subgenre that it's just the amount of stories that you can tell are infinite because there's so much going on. And again, like you said with Fear the Walking Dead, it's like a social experiment on how would society react to something like that happening. And we've even mentioned it. We mentioned it in our zombie episode, um, which has almost 2.5K
Yeah, guys, shout
views.
out. I am
Thank
so
you.
glad you guys like that.
Thank you so
That was
much.
that's literally
That's
our first like it was our first 1,000 viewers, and then it was our first 2,000 viewers. Thank
and
you
then two
guys
and a
for
half thousand. I mean,
viewing it.
that thing
Yeah.
is kicking butt, man. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
all so much. But I don't know what was I even going to say. As we mentioned in our zombie episode, um, it's an interesting concept. How people react to society collapsing, and even look at the pandemic. People lost their shit during the pandemic. People were
Mm-hmm.
losing their minds at the beginning because they thought this was the end times.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't blame anybody. I was scared. We were all scared. Nobody knew
Yeah,
what was going
rightfully
on.
so. Rightfully so.
Exactly. It's an interesting social experiment. But anyways, kind of back to the synopsis and the end of The Walking Dead. I mean, The Walking Dead is masterful in how it's told this story. And I mean, again, typically I'm always more interested in that whole society collapsing beginning. How do people handle things falling apart? But I have loved watching these characters navigate 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years after the apocalypse together, losing each other, gaining people, fighting other people off, fighting walkers. I mean, this show, we were talking about this the other day with Breaking Bad because, I got Julia to watch The X Files. She loved it. And she finally got me to watch Breaking Bad after all this time. And, Breaking Bad is one of the best TV shows I've ever watched. It is. And I told her, I was like, I'm gonna restart The Walking Dead after we finish Breaking Bad. I think I have like 3 or 4 episodes left of that show, and then El Camino, and then I'm gonna restart The Walking Dead because I want to restart it. I want to restart it before the final season. I think I'm gonna try to finish it out. It's probably not gonna happen because that's a lot, but I'm gonna try to finish it out before but at least do the first 5 or 6 seasons maybe. Before the final season starts, just because I kind of want to relive that again, because there's so much that, I mean, when a show's been on this for this long, you kind of forget, you know what I mean? Like, I remember I've rewatched episodes of TWD before where I'm like, oh crap, I forgot that even happened. You know what I mean? Or my dad will call me and be like, dude, do you remember this happening? I don't even remember this episode existing. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I mean, The Walking Dead is it's gonna carve its way as one of the best TV series of all time.
Yeah, it's
It
definitely
really
gonna
will,
be. I
in
keep
my
mentioning
opinion.
this. Yeah, because I don't know if you keep track of this. Like, I don't know if it's VH1 or something like that. There's a thing called like the decades, which if you guys haven't checked, that's where we based off our series of the decades of the movies. Was based off this TV show called the 80s, the 70s, the 60s.
Hmm.
Yeah, which pretty much tells like what are the most like impactful moments of that decade
Yeah.
that created that decade. And 100%, whenever people are going to talk about like 2010, like when that documentary comes out, later on in the future, they're going to talk about The Walking Dead and how it
Oh, for
was
sure.
so culturally impactful
For sure.
to culture, pop culture in general. Yeah,
By the
so
way, check out our episodes on the 70s, 80s, and 90s in film.
check out our decades. It's pretty good.
Shameless plug. We did a whole
Pretty
we did
good.
an episode a 3 episode series on the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So that was a
Really
fun
did.
one.
It really
Those were
was.
some fun episodes. I really enjoyed those.
Hmm.
So comment down below. Let us know what do you think of this new synopsis? What do you think is in store for us in the final season of AMC's The Walking Dead? So let's talk The Last of Us. How about we do that?
Okay.
I thought this was kind of interesting. Let me get to it here.
By the way, like I know I don't play the games, I just watch the videos. Yo, The Last of Us, like the recent game, I guess, Last
Uh-huh.
of Us 2. Fucking hell, it's pretty bleak. It's pretty fucking bleak, that
I
game.
haven't finished it. I wasn't. I will finish it. I have a lot of pop culture crap on my to-do list. I want to restart The Walking Dead. I gotta finish Fear the Walking Dead. I gotta play The Last of Us. I gotta get Resident Evil 8. I'm behind on a lot, but um, I did buy The Last of Us 2. When I was working in Lexington, I worked at Old Navy in Lexington for a couple years, like
Shout out to
summer,
Old Navy
like
and
I
Lexington.
know summer in Hamburg, summer job while I was not teaching
And
in the summer.
yeah,
But I on one of my lunch breaks when The Last of Us 2 came out, I went over and I bought it, and I called my wife and I was like, I'm buying this game. I ran over to Best Buy across the street and I bought it. And I did play. I played like the first hour or so, and it didn't grab me like The Last of Us did. The Last of Us, man, it is it's in my top 5 favorite games I've ever played. The first one, it's fantastic. That's another incredible version of what the zombie apocalypse would look like if things fell apart. It's amazing. So I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on this next little bit of news. So obviously Joel, the main character in The Last of Us, he's a complicated character. Um, he lost his daughter. He's kind of scarred from that. He's kind of hardened. He's kind of cold, uh, by everything that's happened, by the apocalypse, by losing his daughter. And then he finds Ellie and he kind of rekindles that dad behavior a
mentality.
little. Yeah, that dad mentality a little bit. And I mean, obviously, I know she's not his daughter, and I don't think she replaced his daughter, but he loves her in the same way, even though he kind of hated her at first, and they bicker and they fight. They have a complicated relationship, but it's what makes that first the relationship between Joel and Ellie is what makes that first game so fantastic.
Hmm.
And obviously, HBO Max is doing a live action adaptation of that series. Pedro Pascal is playing Joel. What's her name from Game of Thrones?
Bella Ramsey.
Yes, thank you. Bella Ramsey is playing Ellie in that show.
Which again,
Which,
like those two actors, like they showed their worth to be in that, because
yeah,
obviously Pedro Pascal has been like that father figure, kind of like surviving but taking care of something else, and The
mm-hmm.
Mandalorian, which he's done a fantastic job in. And then Bella Ramsey, which is, she played I forgot what her name was, but she plays this like a strong figure in Game of Thrones, and she showed her chops of being a strong individual, which obviously Ellie is considered,
Oh
one of
yeah,
the strongest people I've seen in video game history. Like most of her story in Last of Us 2 is about her. So,
right, yeah. I mean, The Last of Us 2 shifts from like being about Joel to being about Ellie, pretty much. Um, but and you can probably attest to Bell. I haven't watched Game of Thrones, so obviously you can probably attest to Bella Ramsey's acting a little bit more than I can Pedro Pascal's, because obviously I've seen Pedro Pascal in different roles,
mhm.
and I think I was very curious who they were going to cast for Joel. I know a lot of people saw or thought Hugh Jackman, that Hugh Jackman would do really good.
You know what's funny? Hugh Jackman has been like a fan cast for damn near anything
Everything,
since
right? Literally
damn near
anything.
anything. Yeah, they said, "Oh, a stubborn, hardened guy's gonna be in the movie." Hugh Jackman.
A
It's
lovable
literally
dad who
that.
sings, Hugh Jackman. Like, anybody. It could be
Yeah.
literally any role, no matter
Hmm.
how violent and gory to how like kid friendly, lovable. Hugh Jackman. Uh, the man can do it all, folks. But I,
Really
I
can.
I know he was rumored for a while, and I think Pedro Pascal is going to do a great job. I think he is going to do fantastic. He'll be able to pull off like the cold, um, kind of hardened version, but also like the tender, loving dad too. He'll be able to
Mm.
do both. So I'm really excited for that series. But according to new reports, Matthew McConaughey was originally offered the role before Pedro Pascal, and he turned it down.
Sure. Sure.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey is one of my
I do too.
favorite actors. Absolute
I do too.
favorite. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe even top 10 favorite actors of all time. I love the
Him
dude,
him and
but I don't know about Joel.
yeah. Him and I think they probably based that off of him and maybe The Lincoln Lawyer. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that, no.
It's one of Matthew McConaughey's. It's one of my favorite of Matthew McConaughey's work. He's basically just like a rundown lawyer, and he does some pretty like badass shit in that movie as a
Yeah.
lawyer. And I think that's probably what they base it off of. I can't think of any other movies where it's like, how is he like a how can he be personified as a hardened father figure in the time
Ed
of the
TV.
apocalypse?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Ed TV.
But I mean, I love the guy. He's one hell of an actor. He's one of my favorites. He's a
He's
stand-up dude too.
yeah.
I mean, I love him in almost every single role he's in. Interstellar, Wolf of Wall Street. He's great. But I don't know about Joel, because jo- Joel's a tough character. He's
Mhm.
emotional and he's scarred, but he's been hardened and coldened by this apocalyptic world. And I'm not saying Matthew McConaughey couldn't do it, but I think
He's done emotional rather well with
right.
Dallas Buyers Club, which is probably one of his most.
Yes. I'm not saying he couldn't do it. If they would have cast him, he would have been brilliant. It would have been fantastic.
Mhm.
But I think Pedro Pascal might be a better choice for him, because I think Pedro Pascal might be able to bring the rawness of Joel a little bit more to the role.
Hmm.
I also think he looks a little bit more like Joel too.
Yeah, you're probably talking about like the facial hair he's been
Yeah,
sporting
I
now.
could kind of there's actually some pretty dope like fan art of
Hmm.
Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal as Joel and Ellie, and it looks dope. I mean, like I could completely see how they'll pull it off. So I mean, I kind of thought it was interesting that Matt McConaughey was almost, he was offered this and he declined it. And again, he would have been great in it. It's just kind of funny that it was like he's not somebody that I ever would have considered for the role of Joel. When I found out that they were doing a live action adaptation, I would have never threw his name in the pot. And that, again, that's nothing against him. It was just he's not. I wouldn't have considered him. He wasn't. He wouldn't have been somebody that crossed my mind.
Hmm.
But the Last of Us, I believe it's set to start filming next month. It's in pre-production at the moment, so it's getting up, and they're gearing up to bring that beautiful game to life. Um, it's fantastic, and I will definitely be watching that series every single week
Yeah,
on
I
HBO
will
Max. So
100%. The reason it's not even Pedro Pascal and the Mandalorian that I love so much. It was primarily like I forgot what his name was in Game of Thrones because both of them are in Game of Thrones,
yeah,
and seeing Pedro Pascal in Game of Thrones, like his character, even though like that was the most throwaway character I've ever seen. I'm not gonna lie.
you think?
Yeah, 100%. Like Pedro Pascal's Oberyn would have been a beautiful story to hear.
Yeah,
He would have been great later on in the season, but obviously for the matter of the story, yeah. Spoiler alert, he does not last. He does not survive the TV show. So yeah, when I saw him in Game of Thrones, I was like, this is a solid actor. That's pretty much where I base it off of. When I found out Pedro Pascal was gonna be in Last of Us, I was like, Oberyn, really? Okay, I could see that.
yeah. Have you seen some of the fan art? I'm trying to find some
I saw one.
of the two of them.
Yeah, it looked really good. Like he can, like if Pedro, which again, us Latin folks can't really sport a full beard, so it's kind of
I
hard.
mean, let's do this real quick. Check this out. I mean, look at that. Look at that. That's dope.
Mm-hmm.
I
It
really
is
like
pretty
it. I
dope.
mean, like what I see at first, I was like, "Whoa, really?" But the more and more I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I can see it. Like
Yeah,
I can
100%.
completely see it. So I don't know. I'm really excited for that series. It's going to be a lot of fun. I The way I understand it, the first season, I assume they'll do multiple seasons,
Mm-hmm.
will take place during the first game. So they're going to fit the whole first game in one season. So I wonder if it's going to be a limited series. That's a lot to shove in a season.
Yeah.
I honestly wonder if it's going to be a
Listen,
limited series. I don't know if they're going to do a Last of Us Part 3. I think Neil Druckmann kind of alluded to like maybe they could do a story, but I don't really know. I don't know.
I think The Last of Us is definitely worthy of a next step of Game of Thrones. You know what I mean? Because Game of Thrones is
Yeah.
like HBO Max is like head TV series.
Yeah.
Ever since
I
then, there hasn't been any talks of what's gonna replace the popularity of Game of Thrones. I know they're doing House Targaryen storyline, which will be cool. I
mhm.
bet. But other than that, like I don't know if it's gonna be just as impactful as like Game of Thrones.
I don't
Honestly.
know. I don't think they could do as much as Game of Thrones, like as many seasons. I think
Mm.
The Last of Us could probably get 2 or 3 seasons as a limited series, and that would be fine. I think I'd be fine with that. Like
Yeah.
it's not a story that you can drag out like the Walking Dead. You could make that go on as long as you even wanted to. This you can't really drag it out like in the same way. So hopefully they've made the right casting choices. I'm super excited. I hope everybody else is too. Um, but let's move on here. Let's get into our Marvel news because that's kind of the big that's the majority of what we wanted to talk about again.
Yeah, for
So
sure. What we got
um
today?
so we have a couple of different things. A couple of these actually uh kind of broke last night, really. So let's talk WandaVision first because there's been a change with the WandaVision post-credit scene.
Okay.
And it's kind of a strange, no pun intended, but yes, pun intended. Uh, the post-credit scene for WandaVision has changed.
Okay.
Um, we just saw in Loki all the timelines are beginning to branch and it's creating alternate realities and things. There is, and I went back and I verified this. It's true. It's a different post-credit scene. It's slightly different. It's a variation of the post-credit scene we saw from WandaVision before. Uh, there is a strange silhouette that is floating down towards Wanda's cabin
Mm-hmm.
in the new post-credit scene. Now, many people think it's Doctor Strange coming to visit Wanda. Many people think it's White Vision. I don't know why White Vision would be going back. It would make more sense for it to be Doctor Strange,
Mm-hmm.
because if the timelines are, but obviously we don't know. As I understand it, I kind of feel like WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki are all happening at the same time. That would make sense to me. Um, and I kind of think that uh, these timelines branching, this is kind of Marvel's way of being whatever about, leave it to Disney to do this extra next level thing of changing the of changing the post credit scene as like an Easter egg. But I did go back and verify. I watched on Disney Plus last night. There is a little silhouette floating towards Wanda's cabin, and then of course we see Wanda reading the book and things like that. So uh, I personally think it's Doctor Strange because the credits have changed as well. There is the music that's playing during the new post-credit scene is a darker version of the Doctor Strange theme, and
Mm-hmm.
that is confirmed because it actually lists Michael Giacchino, who wrote the Doctor Strange score, in the credits, and it actually says Doctor Strange theme composed by Michael Giacchino. So now, in the post-credit scene of WandaVision, the Doctor Strange theme song is playing as we see uh, her illusion of Wanda sitting on the porch drinking her tea, and then we really see Scarlet Witch Wanda reading the book and things like that towards the end. So my personal kind of train of thought is that it's due to the timelines branching in Loki, and I do think that it's Doctor Strange, whether it's physically Doctor Strange, whether it's Doctor Strange uh in kind of a vision or in a I don't know, but I think it's Doctor Strange.
Sorry, I'm watching it right
Are you
now because
watching
I
it? Yeah.
never I never heard of it, and it's doing
Well,
like a
this
side by side of like the
yeah, this
difference.
this just broke last night.
Fucking hell, I didn't know that.
This
So at
story
what
just broke last night. Let's do
I,
this. Let's
I was gonna say, at what point is it gonna be like show the silhouette? Because I didn't see the silhouette.
let's watch this together. Where is it?
I'm trying to look for the silhouette. Like, at what point is it? Whenever
Let me share my screen. We're gonna watch this together. We're gonna do it
oh,
right
okay.
now. We're
That's the
gonna
exact
do
video I'm
we
watching.
gonna do it. All right. So here, obviously the scenery looks a little bit different, like slightly different too.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's gonna be over. Where's June? Right here. You can kind of see it. I'm following it with the mouse right here. And it's kind of flying down, and then obviously we lose it in the trees, and we see Wanda.
They really reached for that. I'm not gonna
I
lie, because
know
I didn't see jack shit.
they really did. And I feel like only hardcore Marvel fans would actually find it.
Yeah. The rest is pretty much the exact same.
Yeah, the rest is the same. She drinks the tea. It's a hallucination. It's not really Wanda. And then she, as Scarlet Witch, is reading the book.
Again, this is the most badass scene I've seen of
It
Wanda
is.
to this date. Absolutely amazing. Because it just shows like how powerful this woman is becoming right now.
Shows how dangerous she is.
Yeah, I know that they were thinking like WandaVision was going to be like a House of M kind of thing. I think they're saving that up for later on in the series.
I do too, especially since Kevin Feige said, we talked about this last week too, especially since Kevin Feige was like, yeah, Doctor Strange, like everybody was like, oh, Doctor Strange is going to have to kill her in Multiverse of Madness. Kevin Feige was like, nah, her story is not done. Like, the Multiverse of Madness movie is not the end of Wanda. Like, I think she's not going anywhere. But I just thought this was kind of an interesting, again, leave it to Disney, leave it to Marvel to change the ending of a show that has already dropped, just
Yeah,
to
exactly.
like prove a point with the multiverse thing. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Another little, just a little like grain, little rice, piece of rice here, is that Kevin Feige was in an interview talking about um, Black Widow, and he was talking about prequels. And somebody asked him, what's the chance of us seeing more Marvel prequels? What's the chance of us seeing more origin stories about different characters that we've seen in the MCU? And he had this to say. Kevin Feige said, well, certainly this film and this story is a particular case for Natasha, but the notion of exploring the past, present, and future of the MCU is certainly in the cards for all of our characters. This particular story with this particular cast is very personal and very specific to Natasha. So again, he's talking about Black Widow, but more prequel movies aren't off the table. Not big news, nothing breaking,
Mhm.
nothing crazy,
Well, it's
but it's
actually
interesting.
like it's going to the lines of like it's like the cinematic universe is starting entering a level where it's like actually legitimately like comic book issues,
Oh yeah,
like the same equivalent of that,
for
like
sure.
100%. Like, and it's gonna be like I'm all for that to be honest, because it's like throughout comics, as you know, like there's a character is introduced and no one really knows about them, but then later on they say, okay, here's an origin issue of this character,
Right.
and I
Look at
mean,
Wolverine. They
and
did a whole. I love the origin comic series for Wolverine. I believe
yeah,
I own that. I don't know where my comics are. My comics are somewhere. I have like 3 stacks of comic books like that. I wasn't a big comic book guy as a kid, but my honestly, I think my dad might still have some of them. My dad,
I would.
he loves comics.
I'm sure. I was gonna say, like, I'm pretty sure Wolverine is probably the most rebooted origin story that I've seen.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I
it's a
don't know,
good
maybe
origin though. It's a
it's
good
it's
origin
either
story.
it's either Wolverine or Batman, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. Where like you've seen like the beginning of them,
right.
because you had
Spider Man though.
that's three.
Yeah.
That's three right there. But for Wolverine, he's had how many origin stories? He's had the first one in the original X-Men trilogy, and then he had X-Men Origin,
Hmm.
and then he had uh is it Days? No, it's Apocalypse. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen it
Yeah.
where like it actually showed like him actually being within the trap. Yeah, I think he's probably tied, so to speak.
Probably.
So it's known for a franchise to just put in like an origin story like in the middle of the movie, in the
Hmm.
middle of the franchise as it's progressing.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that if MCU wants to do like more origin stories, I'm 100% for it. If I get a Hawkeye origin story, even during the TV series of Hawkeye, if I see his origin story, I'm down with that.
Yeah. That'd be pretty dope.
Hmm.
So I mean, you'd want to see Hawkeye, right?
Hmm.
Is there anybody else in the MCU right now that you would like to see an origin story for?
Um, Nobody else really, honestly.
For me, and hopefully we get a little bit, like a teeny tiny bit of this in
If you say
Eternals.
Hulk, I'm gonna smack you.
No, 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 no.
Oh,
God, no. I would love to see an origin story for Thanos.
I don't
I
know.
mean,
I feel
I
like I feel like
know
I feel like his
in
story is already done.
Infinity War we kind of got the gist of what happened to him and stuff, but
Yeah.
it would be cool. It would be kind of cool to see like how Thanos became Thanos. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Like it was like obviously like with the Eternals movie, they said they're gonna be like spanning like different like so many decades. So there's
Yeah,
a good chance because you know Angelina Jolie's character is cousin of Thanos.
yeah, yeah,
So it would make sense for us to see her or see her and him like, or like them delving into that relationship because it
for
has to.
sure.
So that would be interesting to see his like coming of coming of age or like, him becoming the villain that he is.
Yeah. So hopefully we get a little bit of Thanos in Eternals. But last two stories of the night. We have a little bit of Spider-Man No Way Home news. Uh, Nothing crazy, but it's interesting. It's an interesting coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so Willem Dafoe was in an interview with Collider. Collider Connected. It's a video show that Collider does. He will not comment on his most recent projects, and obviously no, he's been heavily rumored for Spider-Man No Way Home, even as much to say he's been rumored to be the main villain in Spider-Man No Way Home. Uh, but he's not confirmed like Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx are.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, man, he's such a great actor. He's if you look at Willem Dafoe's career from uh from his Hollywood career to his independent movie career. He just did that movie The Lighthouse. Like he's done a lot of
Oh,
different things.
fucking hell.
His
Um,
filmography is long.
Him and The Lighthouse is probably one of the most mind-bending movies
I
I've
have
seen
not
to
seen
this
The
date.
Lighthouse. I've heard
It's
really good
like
things about it.
if I'm not mistaken, The Lighthouse is based off of like a true story of like a disappearance of a certain group of people in a lighthouse. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm wrong, tell me. But yeah, just that entire movie is so mind-boggling. And Willem Dafoe's character in that movie, it really fucks you up. So like I'm not saying I'm surprised by Willem Dafoe's acting chops, but like he really like put it to display with
Yeah,
with that movie. And
he's a great actor, man.
also
I've
with like
always liked him.
him as like the Green Goblin, it was like, golly, he did crazy
Yeah,
really well. You could
yeah,
see his spiral into madness pretty much.
yeah,
And I mean that's why everyone wanted him as the Joker. Everybody
yeah,
wants him as a Joker. He did him perfect. But
yeah.
it is what it is. I would love to see, like, I feel like I may look up later on interviews of him because obviously people had to ask him like, has the Joker ever been like a
Has that ever
a
been on the
spot?
table?
Yeah, I think because it definitely should with fan casts and all that, and you see how he's been acting in like Spider-Man and then the town or like the
Yeah,
lighthouse. Yeah,
yeah.
he has the capability of doing crazy really well.
Well, and it's
I
funny
wanna
because
I was gonna
he's
say like I want to see more crazy.
yes,
If he's in No Way Home, I want to see more crazy,
yeah.
more of it.
Well, and it's funny because he actually said in the interview, because he was asked, I forget the gentleman's name who was interviewing him, but he was asked, like, do you choose to do independent films as well as Hollywood films, or like, do you just, how do you decide like what film you do next? And Willem Dafoe was kind of like, if it's a good story, I do it, and
Hmm.
that's kind of like that's kind of the guy he is. Like, I feel like if it's a good story and if it's a story that he believes in, he's going to go to it and he is going to gravitate to do that role.
Yeah,
And I mean, again, he knocks it out of the park with almost every single role. I mean, name a bad Willem Dafoe role. You
art.
can't because they're all
Yeah,
great.
I want to
Um,
see the one with him playing as Vincent Van Gogh. That seems
mm,
really interesting.
I really wanted to see that when it came out, and I honestly, I kind of forgot about that movie until you just
Hmm.
said it, but I did want to see that really bad. But in this interview, he talked his acting career, some of his past roles. He was asked what was the last role he remembers actually auditioning for, and he said that he remembered auditioning for Spider-Man. Uh,
It's
and
fucking great. It's the fact that he's so like powerful of an actor that
he
he can
doesn't even
offer.
audition anymore.
He doesn't audition anymore.
Um, and he said that he loved that role of playing Norman Osborn because he said he felt like there was a real risk involved in superhero movies at that time
It
because
really
you
was.
have to think Spider-Man came out in what 2000, was it 2001 or 2002? I think it was 2002.
2002.
Yeah. Uh, there was a risk involved because superhero movies weren't the norm. There was no DCEU, there was no MCU. There was that that didn't exist. There weren't there really I mean
It's like the same thing as like with the if you saw like a well-known movie actor going into TV at the time, you knew that
yeah,
his career was pretty much going down the shitter. So like if you would have seen these actors like doing movies, superhero movies, like take for instance, Blade with I
yep.
forgot his name, but you could tell like if you were end up doing a superhero movie, like your career was like pretty low to be honest. But now people are taking chances because look at Jake Gyllenhaal. He was pretty
Yeah.
much a Sundance indie film actor. Pretty much,
Mhm.
he did some Hollywood hitters, but for us to think that he was going to do that, for us to think that he may have been in the MCU was kind of out of the question. And
Right.
he said it in an interview. He said the difference between an indie film and a legitimate like cinematic universe like Marvel, like it's substantial. I remember he said in an interview, you remember the scene in Far From Home whenever he was like talking about like the whole multiverse thing and the elementals?
Yeah.
He was saying I was low key like weirded out because like they said they were like because he was like just the director was like just look around and point at stuff. Don't worry, in the movie it'll be there. So he was like they're elementals. They come from a different universe. They killed my family. Like he really didn't know what the hell
That's
to
funny.
do.
And then Marvel and Disney were like, roll with it. Multiverse, scratch everything we had planned, multiverse.
Yeah, yeah.
Roll with it.
So like trust me, like people those are the people that do indie films, and if they enter the like the cinematic universe, it's an entirely different culture. And I
Yeah.
can't wait to hear Willem Dafoe's if he's in it. I can't wait to hear Willem Dafoe's interview in regards of how different it is from indie to like
Yeah.
actual cinematic, because it's a huge difference, a
Well,
major
it's
difference.
funny that Jake Gyllenhaal says that because, it's funny because back then, Willem Dafoe said it was such a risk taking that role because superhero movies were kind of not really the norm. And then Spider-Man 2000, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, the original, had such a big I mean, it was dare I say it was the first big superhero movie. It was
It's
that
gonna be
movie
the
was a big deal, and Willem Dafoe talked about the fact that he took that role because it was a beautiful script, and like still to this day it's like one of his favorite projects, and he thought that that movie was such a beautiful story, and it
Mhm,
really is. Like, I mean, I Tom Holland is great, he really is, but that first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film is remarkable.
mhm.
It really is.
Both have their place
Right.
and in the Hollywood world, because Tom Holland's Spider-Man is pretty much like it's just adding to the story
Hmm.
of what Kevin Feige wants to do. The Sam Raimi was just Sam Raimi pretty much saying I want to tell a story of Spider-Man. So it's primarily focused on him and like what his journey is. And
Yeah.
there's definitely like a different of weight as compared to how the story should progress.
Hmm.
Because honestly, I'll say this: Tom Holland's Spider Man, at its core, is pretty much eye candy, if that makes sense. To a certain degree, it's like we just love seeing him now. We just love
I
seeing
yeah,
Spider Man. It
I
adds,
see what you
but
mean.
but the fact is like his storyline is great, but it's only a part of the greater vision that Kevin Feige has as compared to
Right.
Sam Raimi. Whereas like I love the story of Spider Man, I want to tell it in my vision,
Right.
which is why you get such an impactful relationship between Norman Osborn and Spider Man.
Yeah. So he was also asked if he had seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, which of course he plays Nuidus, which is I believe I'm saying that right. I could be wrong. Who's an Atlantean, and he said no because he's been working and it's hard for him to watch other movies while he's working. Which good character actor, he gets really invested in his roles. Makes sense. Now, the interesting part of this interview with Collider comes when he is asked. I'm curious, what have you been filming recently, and what are you going to be doing this year, if you don't mind me saying? To which Willem Dafoe replied, that he just finished a film where he is the only actor. I forget the name of it, which is kind of interesting. That's an interesting plot.
Hmm.
But he also said, and I quote, "The other things that I've been doing lately, I prefer to wait until we're ready for them to come out." This is a Spider-Man No Way Home, but not really. Home update, but not really. Excuse me.
Hmm.
Because it's like, is he talking about Spider-Man No Way Home? What would be that under wraps that he couldn't? What else would be that under wraps that he couldn't say?
Yeah,
You
because
know,
most like indie films, like they want you to know about this
right?
movie. Yeah,
Because it's not a big Hollywood production. They have to kind of get the word out in order for you to see it. But he was his body language. He was kind of like, I don't know. He was like, I don't really. I'm not gonna say. So
I love
I
how
kind of feel like he's talking about Spider-Man.
the fear of Kevin Feige just
I know.
indoctrinates anyone that just enters in because they're
It's
so
like
new to it.
when somebody of the Marvel cast or of the Marvel world is doing an interview, I feel
Hmm.
like they're in the middle of doing the interview and they glance out the window and Kevin Feige is like,
It's like have you seen Happy Gilmore?
yeah,
Whenever he was like taking the test and his girlfriend was sitting out there with the window at the window with the signs like, "Do you want me to
yep,
kill them?" It's like
yeah,
that. I'm pretty sure. Like
yeah.
it's pretty bad. But again, I'm glad Willem Dafoe is like. There's rumors of him entering the MCU. I hope he is. And from the looks of it from that interview, it sounds like he is because he sounds like he has a gun pointed to his head
Yeah.
just a little bit.
How would you like to see him as like the main villain in No Way Home against all three Spider-Men? Or at least the one pulling the strings. Obviously there's going to be a slew of different villains. But
Maybe
would you like to see
because
him the one pulling the strings?
you remember the leak plot that we read like in one of our
Yeah,
other
yeah.
like yeah, that one was kind of interesting. It seems a little too far fetched in my eyes, but I would like to see him be a heavy villain within this cinematic version of Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a leak plot. We didn't do a video on it and we didn't talk about it on the movie news show just because I I'm leery to do videos on these things or episodes on these things because we can't confirm it. If we
Yeah.
had sources that were like, "Hey, this is happening. Like this is true." I'd be okay with putting our name out there and putting this out there. But I, I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody. I kind of don't want the movie spoiled for me. So
Exactly.
I don't really. I mean, like, I kind of feel like you said, it was far fetched, but there was a leaked, quote unquote, leaked plot, uh, or leaked script that had Willem Dafoe, uh, as the main villain as Norman Osborn, and he was kind of the one
Like he
bridging the gaps
basically
between all these different multiverses, and
like he
I don't know.
becomes the Norman Osborn of the cinematic universe.
Yeah,
Basically, it was kind of like that, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about that yet,
yeah,
because I would like to see a different person play Norman Osborn, obviously, but at the same time, Willem Dafoe did a great job with it.
he did. He did a really, really great job.
Mm.
So I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. Baby Spider-Man No Way Home update. Not really, not quite a whole, real update. Just something that's kind of keep it in the back of your mind. Thought it was kind of
Hmm.
interesting. So the last story of the night. This beer is starting to kick me a little bit, which is fine because this is going to be a really fun story to talk about. It's going to be a little bit of a debate.
Okay, let's hear this debate.
So first of all, James Gunn is one of those directors, one of the few directors. He's kind of played both sides. He's played the Marvel thing, he's played the DC thing, and he's done both of them really well. Obviously, the Suicide Squad has not come out yet, but from the trailers we've seen, the Suicide Squad looks dope. It really does. It looks
Hmm.
phenomenal. And I really like James Gunn as a director. I really like the things that he does. So a fan took the initiative to ask James Gunn on Twitter, is there even a remote chance that we will see a big blockbuster crossover between the Marvel universe and the DC universe? And his response was pretty interesting.
Okay. What did this man say?
So James Gunn replied, and I quote, "I've casually talked to the powers that be at both Marvel and DC about it. I would love for it to happen. I don't think it's likely, but I don't think that it's an impossibility either. That said, just constantly seeing crossovers and mashups is less enchanting to me than a strong story." I, I, I see where he's coming from. James Gunn seems like the director that, or the type of director, excuse me, that he's gonna take a strong story over what anybody else wants.
Yeah, which I
If
think
he
every
if
director should. It should
Right,
never. Yeah,
if the story isn't strong, even if all of the fans and all your producers and all of your the studio and everybody else is like, hey, we want you to do this. If the story sucks, it's not gonna be good.
yeah.
And I kind of respect James Gunn for that. But a Marvel DC crossover isn't off the table. Um, at at face value, take Marvel and DC, take the MCU and the DCEU as they are right now. Miguel, would you want to see a Marvel DC crossover film or no?
Well, I mean, I think
That's a loaded question. There's a lot. There's a hell of a lot to consider with that question.
it's honestly like one of those things where it's obviously the DCEU needs something to revive it back
Yeah,
to its hype because there really isn't much hype. It's just, hey, there's some movies coming out.
Blue Beetle.
Um, yeah, there's been like obviously there's been some like crossovers already in the comics. There's been a plethora of
Uh-huh.
crossovers, with crossover classics like the Marvel DC collection. Like they talk about that, about what could happen, and it's interesting stuff. I was never able to read up on that just to see like because like if you want to know how a crossover would be, read those comics. You'll know if like if it's has the capability to have a film adaptation of it. I just don't know how the story would play out, to be honest. I've never seen a storyline where they had the crossover and I liked,
Hmm.
or I've never seen any of that for that matter. So I mean, I don't know. I think with the direction MCU is going to go into a more like darker cinematic universe, it could work at this very moment
Right.
with how the DC obviously is. I mean, Wonder Woman 2 was pretty campy a little bit. Shazam was pretty campy. Not saying that's a bad thing, but you know how lighthearted those movies were. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like there
Yeah.
wasn't no like real like heavy weight to those movies. And granted the MCU kind of has that. There is like, weight to it, but it's not like end of days to the point where like
Right.
these characters could legitimately die. Endgame was the only one that I can think of that had that. Age of Ultron had that because of Quicksilver, but it was that death was hard for a lot of people, I'm sure, but it was so sudden and it didn't really carry much
Yeah.
weight.
Well, and he was also introduced in that movie.
Yeah,
He
so there
wasn't a
wasn't.
character that we had held on to for 3 or 4 movies. Um, as you said before, a Marvel DC crossover is not completely unheard of. In 1996, Ron Mars and Peter David wrote a crossover storyline involving both universes, and basically this is the plot summary straight off of Wikipedia, um, which I know is the most reliable source anybody's ever seen. Right? This plot summary says two godlike brothers who personify the DC and Marvel universes each become aware of the other's existence, and they challenge each other to a series of duels involving each universe's respective superheroes.
Yep,
Now,
that sounds like a comic.
I do not think that could be adapted into a film. I think that would crash and burn hard. But uh there is like a 0.5% chance of seeing a Marvel DC crossover event. For me it's a cool idea. Like it's fun to think about and it's fun to debate like who would win, but I don't think now is the time. You know, The DCEU is a mess, and I'm sorry, but we've talked about that before. It's a mess. At least in our, I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I think in both of our opinions, the DCEU is kind of a mess right now.
Collectively, as you know, a general fan audience for the DC universe, it is kind of a mess. Like, let's be honest,
Yeah,
there's more heated debates on DCU than there is in Marvel, the
right.
MCU, and it'd be impossible right now to do a crossover. Like the DCEU has to have some sort of, it has to be like 80% love for the
Yeah,
franchise. Right now, it's sitting at like maybe like 50 or 60 right now,
yeah,
and that's not great. Well, I'll be honest, that's not great. But whenever the DCEU starts gaining a little bit more momentum and they have their own like legitimate cinematic universe, that's where I think the whole crossover could possibly take place. I
right.
think if it's gonna sound stupid as hell, if the DC were to do a crossover, I feel like it wouldn't be with Marvel. It could be with Mortal Kombat because there obviously was a crossover. There are
Was there
there
really?
it was the game.
I didn't know that. True. You're right.
Yeah, the
I'm an
game.
idiot. You're right.
Like Shao Kahn, I think combines with Apocalypse. No, I'm thinking of someone. No, I think he combines with Darkseid or something like that. If I'm not mistaken, I
Mm,
don't know. He does something that makes him a more powerful being, and
right.
obviously, the DC converses, which by the way, like the DC and Mortal Kombat crossover is still to this day, it's still talked about. I mean, with the new Mortal Kombat movie game that came out, um, you know how like those fighting games, they now have like dialogues before that legitimate fight.
Yeah.
They still like some of those still have like talks of like that crossover event, like with Raiden
Hmm.
and Sub Zero and Batman, like and I think it was Batman and Superman, like the dialogues that they have with one another before they fight, they
Hmm.
actually mention that specific game that had that crossover.
Really?
So there's a good chance that I could see more. I would be more inclined to see that DC Mortal Kombat crossover than I would with the MCU and DC because I don't know, like the DCU is just it's left the train. It's left the train station. It's
Yeah.
literally gone full steam ahead to its own direction, and it's kind of hard to do that unless we see it, unless we see it like we'll probably see it probably like a decade later. Because let's be honest, the MCU's vision is planned out decades ahead of what we are. Like, trust me, I'm sure the MCU is decades ahead of where we are right now.
Yeah, and I don't know. The way I see it, DC is a mess. They don't really have a clear direction, at least that's visible to us fans. The MCU is kind of going through a big transition with this whole Disney Sony multiverse thing. Now, like you said, in 15, 20 years, if we've reached superhero fatigue and people, if the MCU has
It
exhausted all of its storylines, if the DCEU has exhausted the Snyderverse and its main DCEU, and there's literally nowhere else, if there's nowhere else for either universe to go out with a bang, have them fight each other. But I think right now you can't do that right now. It doesn't make enough sense.
I would
um
see that. I could see that now whenever we hit the hero fatigue, the superhero fatigue.
yeah,
I
because
could see that
we
happening.
just talked about that with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man film. The first Spider-Man film with Sam Raimi, that was kind of the beginning of this superhero madness movement that we saw into what built the MCU. And then, I mean, we're gonna hit a point where the MCU is no more. Where it has to end because it has to. You have to tell the end of a story. And again, I think we will reach superhero fatigue, and that may not happen for 15 years. It may not happen for 20 years. It may not happen for 30 years. But
It
who
will happen.
knows? It will happen. You know what I would really like to see? DC. As much as we hate on DC, and we like DC, but they do really well with their animated stuff. I would love if you could get Disney and Sony and Warner Brothers to tag team like an adult style animated Marvel versus DC thing. That would be cool.
I could see
I
that
would watch the
happening.
crap out of that.
I could see that happening a lot more because the Marvel animated universe is not all that well. It's
Yeah.
not great.
Well, the problem is all the red tape because Disney owns certain characters. Sony owns certain characters.
Mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers owns certain characters. That would be the issue, is fighting through all the red tape of getting them together. It would literally take all three companies being like, we're this is fine. We're doing this. We're allowing this to happen. Um but if they were going to do an animated thing, I would like for it to be dark, like R-rated level, gritty. I don't know. I would have to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so this is the fun part. This is where we're going to have a little bit of a debate here, you and I. So in the 1996 comic, there were 11 battles that took place in this Marvel DC crossover storyline. And I thought that it would be fun to go through each one of these battles and talk about who should win, who would we each have win, and then as I knock over my microphone, and then we can I actually have who actually won in the comic book, which character won against the other. So first matchup, you ready?
Yeah.
First matchup was Aquaman versus Namor.
Okay, you're entering a realm where it's like I have to know that storyline in the comics. I know nothing about Namor.
That's fair.
Like, I'm gonna be straight honest with you. I know nothing about Namor.
That's fair.
Jack shit. I know a little bit of Aquaman, pretty much from the DCEU, from Flashpoint, and all of the New 52. Like, I know Aquaman from those, and Aquaman is he's completely different from the DCEU. The DCEU Aquaman is, by I forgot his name now. Who plays Aquaman? Jason Momoa.
Yes.
That Aquaman right now is very laissez-faire. Like, he doesn't really want to be the ruler, so to speak.
Yeah, he's kind of just like, let me drink beer and chill out on my own. Like,
Yeah,
I don't want to fight you.
Like, he wanted nothing to do with Atlantis, as compared to Namor, which I know from the comics based on Black Panther and Namor. Namor is very like against the land population. So obviously that's the case. And Aquaman is the same way. Like, he has some animosity towards the land people, but it's not
as much as Namor.
Yeah.
I could see Namor, which we know Namor is kind of a very emotionally driven character. He's angry, he's defensive.
Mm-hmm.
I could
you got to understand, comic and animated series Aquaman is pretty much like that. He's very emotional, I guess. Very opinionated against land folks.
So, they're very similar, I guess, in a lot of ways.
You see that. I seen that with New 52, and I've also seen that with like Injustice, because during the events of Injustice, Aquaman was with Superman with the whole point of like, you have to kill to have justice.
Yeah.
Which honestly, like, Aquaman was like he never had that. He never established that line of like, do I kill or do not kill? He was like, you bad, take me down.
Yeah.
You going 6 feet under.
Well, so, I'll go ahead and tell you, in the original comic book, Aquaman wins, and he wins by throwing a whale on top of Namor and crushing him.
Again, like, I don't know Namor's powers.
I know.
Not really.
I think they have similar powers. And keep in mind, this is from the 90s.
I've seen on Instagram where it's like, which hero came out when. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Aquaman came first, and then Namor came next. And like, you know what I mean? Like, certain individuals. So like Iron Man, I think, came after Batman.
Yeah.
So like, it's like one of those. It's like I can't really tell. Like, I couldn't give you a legitimate answer as to who would win. Obviously, in the comics, Aquaman wins. And honestly, I'm 100% for that because it's mainly based on popularity. People know
Right.
Aquaman more than they know Namor.
Well, and it's kind of funny that you say it's based on popularity because the first 6 matchups um, of the 11 were decided by the writers. The big ones, the last one, two, three, four, five, one, two, three, four, the last 5 matchups were determined by readers. There was a vote between audience members and readers of the comics that determined who won.
Mm-hmm.
So the last 5 are kind of like the big characters of each universe, so it's kind of interesting. The next one was Elektra versus Catwoman. Now, I would say Elektra beats the hell out of Catwoman, just because I think Elektra is a little bit more. Catwoman is a little bit more burglar-esque type villain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Elektra is more like I can freaking wreck you, kind of kind of character, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who would you pick between Elektra and Catwoman to win in a fight? The two of them, death to one of them fight.
Be Elektra to me. Yeah.
And we're both right because in the comics, Elektra won the
There
fight
you go.
between her and Catwoman. The next one, interesting, interesting one. The Flash versus Quicksilver.
Flash.
Yeah,
100%.
The Flash won, and the Flash won because he can run faster than Quicksilver can.
Yes.
I don't really know. Does the Flash have more powers than? Does he have like different powers than Quicksilver?
The Flash is pretty much like he gets his power from the Speed Force, which if you guys have seen Flashpoint, you know he has that power to literally change history if given the choice. Like you saw with the new, I think it was Apocalypse War, you saw that because he's Flash has done a Flashpoint event twice, I
I
think
really
right
hope we
now.
see this in the Flash movie. I hope we get a little bit.
A
I
little
know
bit
it's
of
been
Flashpoint.
rumored to be a little bit of a
Yeah.
Flashpoint like storyline. I hope we get a Flashpoint thing. And we
Yeah,
did see a
same.
little bit of that in Justice League
Yeah, because
when the
listen,
Flash goes back to warn Bruce Wayne of what happens with Superman and everything that's going to go on.
which fun fact, um, in the Snyder cut, like, because obviously, like in the Josh Whedon cut, like what he does and whenever he was facing off with Superman, like you didn't really tell, like you could tell he was like pretty weak, obviously. But in the
Yeah.
Snyder cut, it was the same scene between Flash and Superman. The way he positioned his hand,
Yeah.
like you could tell based on the Snyder cut that he was that close, like that close to entering the Speed Force to take down Superman. Like because in the Snyder cut you saw that whenever the explosion happened, he immediately reached out his hand and went into the Speed Force. Like he
Yeah.
has that power to
He does.
absolutely stop time and do what he needs. And I thought that was so fucking cool that the fact that in the event whenever Superman was revived,
Hmm.
when he turns like, fucked up and he starts attacking the Justice League, Flash was this close to enter the Speed Force just to take down Superman. And I'm
Right.
pretty sure wholeheartedly he could easily do it because, the usual thing is Superman's faster than a speeding bullet.
Hmm.
And that quote right there gave the debate whether Superman's faster than Flash. There's no question about it. Flash is 100% faster than
Well,
Superman.
but you have to think you did have that scene in Justice League though, where the Flash is running and Superman is like looking at him, like as
Yeah,
he's.
but if you understand that point, he's able to be just as fast as the Flash, but the Flash can go much faster.
That's fair,
Yeah, because
and I
in
can see
in
how that makes
Apocalypse
sense.
in Apocalypse War, at the end of everything, which by the way, spoiler alert, guys, um, they win, but at the cost of literally like losing everybody. Everyone's already been fucked up to no
Yeah,
return. And Superman literally looks at Flash and be like, you have to do it again.
yeah,
And Flash is like, you mean another Flashpoint? Like, I don't like that's probably like it'll probably I don't think that's gonna help. And he was like, honestly, man, anything is better than what we just went through.
Yeah.
So Superman understands that the Flash is much faster, and you don't see that with Quicksilver. So back to
Right.
the debate,
That's
you
why
don't
I
see
loved
that with
his.
Quicksilver
That's why I loved the Flash's storyline in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
because it
That
really
scene
hinted
where
at
he
his true
finally
power.
like really gets it, and he's like almost reversing time.
Hmm.
That was so emotional. Like that. Whoops. That was such like a big. That was such a big thing.
The
So
thing with the Flash at the Snyder Cut is the fact that he does have the ability to do it. He just doesn't feel comfortable doing it
right.
because he doesn't know the full extent of his powers yet.
Yeah.
Because obviously, Flash from Apocalypse War is much more experienced than Flash in the Snyder Cut.
Mm,
So, 100%, the Flash is winning this.
yeah.
What does the comic
So
say?
the Flash wins, obviously, and the Flash
How?
wins because he can get the upper hand on Quicksilver because he can move quicker than Quicksilver clan can.
Hmm.
Quicker than Quicksilver. He can move quicker than he can. So obviously the Flash gets the upper hand. The next fight is Robin versus Jubilee. I couldn't tell you the first thing about Jubilee. Robin wins. I can tell you that. From what I understand, Jubilee is an X-Men member, or
Oh
an
yeah,
X-Men
she
character.
has
Yeah,
she has like a electric whip. No, not really. I'm thinking of Deadpool,
I
pretty
couldn't
much.
really comment on that one because I don't really know enough about the character. But Robin wins that fight. And then
Yeah,
next is another interesting matchup.
you know why though? It's because it's always the same thing with like whenever Batman or Robin fights someone,
Uh
it's always like give Batman time to research,
huh. Yeah.
pretty much, because everyone loves to talk about what's it called? I think it's Doom or something like that, where
Uh
it's
huh.
where Batman like created like a shit ton of contingency plans
Yeah.
against
Yeah. Yeah.
his peers,
Uh huh.
and someone gets it and uses it against them. So
Yeah.
like, trust me, have you like listened or seen the audio tapes of Batman
Mm-mm.
and his contingency plans? They are
I've not.
fucking they're they are rough. Like he literally says like in some of them he does like in-depth research of them. Others they're just like, eh, do this. Yeah, this lady, yeah, just do this and he's good. And like others are like much more detailed in how to take him down. And I think that's fucking dangerous. Like
Yeah.
Batman. So I think Robin has that same tenacity of like actually
Probably.
doing research to take down
I would
Jubilee. I'm
agree.
sure because there's obviously a weakness to Jubilee. Every single superhero has a weakness, and Batman is the only one to actually like research it and put it to use.
Right.
So
He's
that's why
smart.
Batman is Batman is
He's smart in that way.
yeah, he's
Next matchup is a really interesting one. The Silver Surfer versus Green Lantern.
ooh.
Yeah, right. That when I saw that one, I was like, "Ooh, like that would be kind of an interesting. That would be kind of an interesting matchup."
Yeah,
Um, let me.
because I don't know, it's something. Look, the Green Lantern is strong. He is a formidable opponent. But the only time how can I put this? The only time where I've seen like him showing his full strength is whenever he's with uh the the actual Green Lantern Corp. The Green Lantern Corp is or like the Green Lantern. Only time I've seen him like at his like at full strength is whether he's with the Green Lantern Corp, which again
Right.
is an entirely different civilization. It's kind of the same as like the Asgardians. It's like they're a different interstellar being. So like as a group, because
That's
like
fair.
if you think about it with like the Asgardians, like I kind of like relate the Asgardians with the Green Lantern because it's obviously it's an outer world civilization. And I feel like even though Thor is extremely powerful, I think he is even more when with the Asgardians behind him. So I feel like with the Green Lantern, like yeah, it's based on his like will. I think that's the thing is will is his power.
Yeah.
So, but with the Silver Surfer, he is definitely like his powers are from what I know from just listen, just from movie experience,
Uh-huh.
his powers are given from Galactus, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's an all powerful being right there.
Q 2004 Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so the Green Lantern, I say the Green Lantern does have. I think it's a good fight, but I feel like the Silver Surfer takes the hand.
And he ultimately in the comic book he does because the Silver Surfer and the Green Lantern collide, and it sends off such a blast of cosmic energy. It actually hurts the Green Lantern, but the Silver Surfer is like unfazed, and Silver Surfer wins that fight. The next fight is one that I could kind of see going either way, but I'm glad that it went in the direction that it did. The next fight is Thor versus Shazam.
Thor.
I would agree. I would agree because Thor seems, while you could argue that their powers are similar, I think that Thor seems more in control of his powers.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't
Because
really know much about Shazam past the first film that he was
Shazam is
actually
still
in.
Shazam is still very much a kid in a grown man's body.
Yeah.
So his capabilities is limited to his adolescent age. Even though he
Right.
has the wisdom of Solomon, you don't see it much. You really don't see it much.
Yeah.
But with Thor, like he's a couple thousand years old, so he has the wisdom. He has the arrogance, but he does have the wisdom of a seasoned warrior. And I think with Mjolnir at his hand, he is a formidable opponent. But barring without Mjolnir, I think the match is evenly well said
It is. It's a
because we've
good
seen,
match. It's a
yeah,
very good match.
because we've seen like him and his capabilities without the hammer. Because
Yeah.
like again, he's not the god of hammers. He's the god of thunder. So
Right.
you know like his powers. So it'd be an interesting matchup.
I feel like Odin. Are you the god of hammers or the god of thunder?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't think Shazam could take it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, Thor does end up winning in the comic books, and it's because the fight is so rough that Shazam is forced to change back to Billy Batson, and he tries to change back to Shazam, and Thor ends up intercepting the lightning bolt to change him back,
Hmm.
and Thor ends up beating him. So that's a I don't know, that's a really fun one.
Yeah.
So
Also
here's what we
because
get.
Thor, also because Thor is like he's like comic book Thor is well um
Well
well
trained.
known to like no well known to like legitimately kill someone.
Yeah, that's fair too.
100%.
He's a little bit more brutal than MCU Thor.
Yeah.
So
And
the
more brutal than
last,
Shazam.
yeah, the last five are arguably the most interesting because it's some of their biggest characters up against each other.
Hmm.
So probably my favorite fight of the entire thing is the next one, and I'm really curious what you think of this. Are you ready?
Hmm.
Superman versus the Hulk.
Superman, I
That's a
think.
dope matchup right there.
Superman, I think, gets the cake, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
As I have always been a huge Hulk fan, and as much as it pains me inside to say Superman, I have to go with Superman because uh Superman probably has the upper hand in terms of the powers he has. And in the comic books, Superman does win. And I will say in the comics, the Hulk holds his own, though. In terms of
Well,
strength,
here,
the
listen.
Hulk almost overpowers Superman.
Mhm. It's pretty much the same principle as like a Doomsday and Superman. Like the second Doomsday is introduced into a battle with Superman, Superman literally has to send him out of space
Yeah.
because the collateral damage is going to be substantial between them. And you've seen obviously with I think the two stories now with New 52 and the original comics, like Superman does die
Yeah.
in the event of fighting Doomsday, but I don't know. I think listen, what you're talking about right now has already been well said, again, like I don't remember those videos with the superhero death match. Do you know what that
Yeah,
YouTube video
yeah.
is?
There's a couple of good YouTube
Yeah,
videos about would the Hulk win or would Superman win or
yeah,
the
yeah.
Superman.
So like I've seen those, but I just don't remember the video. I think Superman wins, if I'm not
He
mistaken,
does.
mainly
Well, he
because he is honestly like he is he is what's it called? He's infinite in his powers.
he is.
Hulk is limited by his rage.
Yeah.
That's
And the
where
Hulk
it kind
gets
of.
tired too.
Hmm.
Basically, the heat vision is what really saves Superman. Um, the Hulk actually almost takes down Superman in terms of like brute strength,
Hmm.
but Superman, because he can move quicker, his heat vision, Superman ends up winning the fight. The next one is Spider-Man versus Superboy. I don't know the first thing about Superboy. Spider-Man ends up winning the fight, which is pretty dope.
Yeah,
I think Superboy is kind of just the B version of Superman, to be completely honest.
it's literally it's basically Superman except he doesn't know his strength. Same thing I keep saying with like the Flash
Right.
because in regards to like comic writing, again, Superboy is he's limited by his age right now.
Yeah.
Unless he becomes an adult Superman, it becomes the new Superman. I don't know. It's different with Superboy and Superman. That's
Right.
that's been well said. Like I think in the new 52 animated show, there was a moment where the new Titans were fighting um, the Justice League, and
Yeah.
obviously Superman gets the upper hand because he's well experienced in his powers.
Could you see Spider-Man beating Superboy?
I could see it. I'm curious to see how it happens.
Well, the this says that with the advantage of his spider sense, Spider-Man won by tying Superboy with impact webbing and electrocuting him with high voltage, which knocked him out.
Oh,
So Spider-Man kind of uses his tech abilities a little bit.
mm-hmm.
Um, Next fight: Wolverine versus Lobo. It's another good one. Which Lobo is not a character I'm like super
he's
on.
he's like an intergalactic, which I would much rather have saw Deadpool and Lobo
Yeah, I could see that too.
because both of them are pretty much like bounty hunters,
Right.
and also Deadpool has the healing factor as Wolverine.
Yeah.
I want to say Wolverine.
You think Wolverine?
I'm wrong, ain't I?
It's Wolverine.
Oh, okay, cool.
Wolverine beats Lobo, and it's super brutal. It's in a bar, which of course it's in a bar. Wolverine.
Beautiful.
He probably had a cigarette in his mouth as well.
Well, so does Lobo. If you know Lobo's character, he
Yeah,
always has
yeah,
a
yeah,
drink
yeah,
in a cigar.
yeah. So obviously Wolverine wins. Next fight is Storm versus Wonder Woman. It's
Wonder
another
Woman.
really good fight. I would have to go Me personally, not saying this happens in the comics, I would have to go Wonder Woman as well. Um,
Mainly because I mean when I think of like crossover battles, I always go down to um the most aggressive versions of them. And the most aggressive version of Wonder Woman is during the Injustice storyline where she's like, I'm here to kill.
right.
She's more brutal than Superman. Like Wonder Woman is probably the most hated character in the Injustice storyline just because of her legitimate brutality. Like she has no remorse. Like she will
Right.
kill.
Yeah, she's hardcore.
Mm.
You might be kind of surprised after this one.
Storm really wins.
Storm wins.
Ow.
Now, here's what it says. After Wonder Woman drops Thor's hammer, in order to allow the fight to happen as it was intended to, yes, Wonder Woman is worthy of holding Mjolnir. Storm won the battle after repeatedly hitting Wonder Woman with lightning after their brief melee encounter. So, if it was just hand to hand combat, Wonder Woman would probably win. But if, I guess, given Storm's different abilities,
Mm-hmm.
she did end up beating Wonder Woman. Which Storm is one of the more powerful X-Men, so I could
I
see
think
it.
I think she's an Omega level mutant, if I'm not mistaken.
She
There's
is.
a certain. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah,
different classes of X-Men.
yes, she is. Storm is one of the top tier, which I mean, she can do some crazy stuff. You know, Storm. I always really like Storm's character a lot. I kind of find it interesting that Wonder Woman uh, could hold Mjolnir.
I know,
It
but
doesn't surprise me because she's kind of a god too, or goddess. But
I
yeah,
think it.
Storm ends up winning that battle.
Hmm. Okay, I'll go for that because again, there's different levels of mutants, and I think the X-Men comics are probably the most interesting to me because it actually levels like classes of like different of like the powers of them.
Right.
And the Omega one is where it's like, yo, this character is a world breaker. I'm trying to
Right.
think of who are the Omega level. Um, I'm looking that up right now.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think what's his name? Iceman. Iceman is a Omega level.
Is he
Mutant.
really?
He is.
Why? Wolverine is surely right.
I don't think so.
Really?
Nope, he's not.
That's
The
interesting
top,
because Wolverine is like the main. You know, he's the main shiz.
yeah. So like if you think about it, Magneto is an Omega level
Yes.
um character.
Charles would be right.
Yeah, no, he's
What?
not. He's not.
Charles is not an Omega level mutant.
No. Well, who am I thinking of? Who am I thinking of right now?
Jean would be
Jean with the Phoenix Force is an Omega level
right.
mutant.
Honestly, I would say
Um,
Jean without the Phoenix Force is Omega level.
she's in the same realm
I
as
find it crazy that
Professor X.
Storm is Omega level, but
I know.
Charles is not.
Yeah,
Charles
like
Xavier is
the
not.
ones that I'm seeing right now that I can immediately tell is Iceman, Legion, and if you do you know who Legion is?
Kind of.
Legion is Professor X and Jean Grey combined, but with huge mental disability. Not
That
disability,
sounds
but like
freaking terrifying.
you like have you seen the X-Men show? Have you seen the FX show of Legion?
Yeah.
It really put it put Legion into the spotlight because it really showed the amount of power this man has and the fact that
Yeah.
he's so unstable. Even like with Jean Grey, she became unstable with the Phoenix Force, but with Legion, he gets that from his own mind.
Right.
Like it is like Legion is probably one of the most dangerous
Wow.
X-Men characters to this date.
That's fair.
Yeah, the classes of the X-Men mutants, those interest me a lot because I would
Yeah.
again, that's why people want to see
So what
the
class is
X-Men.
Wolverine in? What is Logan in?
Let me check that out right now.
Because I don't know. He's just such an important character in the whole X-Men world. You know what I mean? In the
What?
mutant world, he's so important.
He's a beta level. He's a beta buddy.
Really? Beta
He's a
bitch.
beta bitch. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, man. That kind of shocks me a little bit.
It's pretty much like the way they described it was like he's a beta level mutant, which means that he can actually pass off as a human.
That's fair because he
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, he could pass as
Yeah.
that. The difference with like when you compare that to Legion, who is she like you can tell me like this is a mutant. This is a godlike mutant.
Right.
So it's yeah. So like Jean Grey is a class 5 mutant, and what else? Yeah. So like if I'm thinking of, Wolverine's only a second level mutant.
Wow,
So there's
that's pretty wild.
alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, and omega. So there's 6 levels to this shit.
All right, the last fight of the night is arguably probably the most interesting one, other than Superman and the Hulk.
Probably know where this is going.
What's your guess?
Is it Batman versus Iron Man?
No,
Oh,
it's
really?
Batman versus Captain America. Now you got to think. You got the brains. You got Batman. You got the brains. You got the technological advantage, but you got the strength and the heart in Cap.
It's Batman.
You think? Why do you say
Yeah.
Batman?
Because again, he has his ability to do research and know his shit. And you saw with Civil War in the cinematic universe, Spider-Man literally said, "Tony told me to go for your legs," because that's like one of his weak spots. So if given the chance, Batman would know how to take down a super soldier. Pretty much, Batman would know how to take down a super soldier. 100%.
That's fair. I would almost, me personally, I would say Captain America just because Cap is so much stronger than Batman is.
Mm-hmm.
But this is kind of an interesting fight because it ends in a tie. Neither one of them really wins, and it's kind of uncertain. So basically,
That was definitely a writer's decision.
there's a really hardcore fight between the two of them, and they kind of hold their own against each other. Um, and Batman actually saves Captain America at one point. And it kind of ends without a clear winner. There's not really a winner between the two of them. So it's kind of a little bit of a tie, which I could understand because, like you said, Batman is willing to do the research and he can find out about these characters. Captain America does have the strength behind him, but it's not necessarily. Uh, it
It's
it's a
this
good
is this
matchup. It's a
no
good
this
matchup.
is I 100% believe Batman could take on Captain America because
And win?
again, and yeah, and the new 52 animated series, the Superman ends up, being, mind controlled by I think Poison Ivy, and Catwoman and Batman had to, like, escape from him. And Batman literally tells Catwoman, he says, "You know what the plan is. Just do it, and I'll stick down here." And Catwoman was like, "Are you sure you could take down Superman?" And literally, all Batman does is as he's putting on literally kryptonite knuckles or whatever, brass knuckles, kryptonite brass knuckles with edges. He says, "I'm sure I can. Deep down, Superman is a good-hearted man, and deep down, I am not." I was like, "Fuck."
That's
That was
awesome.
that was such a badass
Woo!
line, and
That's pretty badass.
it showcased the fact that Batman does have morals, but deep down, he has the brutality to take down.
Yeah.
And again, in the Injustice storyline, Batman literally beats Superman down to a pulp and was ready to kill Superman.
Yeah.
It was in the comics, so it's not in the video games. It was in the comics. He was ready to take down Superman. He
Mhm.
literally said, "Listen, I could kill you right now with no hesitation, but that's not what I want to do."
Right.
Because that was the whole point of the Injustice storyline, was Batman was still with his morals, Superman was no longer with his. And I think given enough uh I would say given enough weight on both of them,
Mhm.
Batman would definitely take down Captain America 100%. I
Interesting.
100%
It's
agree.
a, it's a very it's an interesting matchup.
Just because I know Batman, again, that one line in the new 52 animated series that said it
That's
all.
pretty dope. I must say
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
So, overall, now this is not any specific character against another. Overall, if the entire Marvel universe went toe to toe with the entire DC universe, which one do you think comes out on top? Because
Marvel.
in this comic book, Marvel does. If you actually tally up which characters won, the Marvel universe does win 6-4.
It would be Marvel.
I would have to agree. I think while Superman and Batman, and while DC does have really strong characters, Shazam, Wonder Woman, Marvel has more. I almost think it's kind of a numbers thing. I think Marvel has more characters that are that top tier level powerful than
Mm-hmm.
DC does, and I think that would be their downfall. So
Yeah,
overall,
because
I would have to say Marvel would come out on top.
yeah, again, and also I could honestly say probably with certainty the X-Men universe could take down the DCEU alone.
Probably.
I think that's probably the case just because of the different class of different mutants and the fact that the Omega level mutants could definitely take down the DCEU or the DC universe. Again, guys, please tell me. I want to hear your I want to hear your opinions on this because trust me, I love talking about this shit because I 100% agree. Bar from the MCU and the DCEU in Earth of Comics alone, I think my opinion is like the X-Men universe could take down the DC universe.
I would almost.
And that's not coming from a fucking
Me.
MCU fan guy. Okay?
And you're not being an MCU fanboy. It's just the truth.
This is coming from like a comic reader. Like
I think that I could
100%
agree with
agree.
you. Yeah.
So
I would have to go with Marvel. But
mm-hmm.
guys, let us know what you think. Who would win in a fight versus DC and Marvel? Which side would win? Which characters out of all of our battles we just talked about? Which one would win? Would you like to see a Marvel versus DC film headed by James Gunn? Let us know in the comments. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of Let's Talk Movie News. Again, if you haven't checked out episode 27 of our main show, we are breaking down the Halloween Kills trailer, and we will have some more Halloween Kills content coming out until the movie drops. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us. Again, please let us know what you think of all these matchups. Let us know what you think of this week's movie news, because the goal here is to talk with you. That's the whole point of our show, is to interact and get your all's opinions. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at We Talk the Movies, so be sure to follow us there. We release our main show, Let's Talk Movies, on Monday nights at 8 p.m. EST, and Let's Talk Movie News on Fridays at 8 p.m. as well. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us, and we will see you on Monday for Let's Talk Movies. Thanks so much. We'll see you.
Peace.